Hello, I'm Victor Newman, and I'm going to be introducing the Research Impact Strategy Playbook today, co-authored by my colleague, Professor Paul Phillips. This is the video of the book launch at the Democratization of Research Impact Strategy Conference 2023 on the 29th of March 2023. So welcome. The first question you might want to ask is, why did we include the term playbook in the title? A playbook is a notebook compiled by a coach for recording tactics and designing game strategies, with a collection of what we might call plays or tactical choices that can be adopted to realize specific outcomes. We choose the term playbook, or we chose to use the term playbook to describe a collection of robust and practical tools and techniques designed to encourage productive, innovative play among research impact practitioners. We also wanted to introduce the idea and almost the emotion of playfulness, to use research impact as a game analogy, the game analogy, to unpack the nature of the exercise in terms of inquiry around rules, players, goals, audiences, tactics, and strategies. So who is this playbook for? This playbook is set in the context of an individual researcher, research leader, or research strategist. This is somebody who wants to begin the process of introducing research impact capability to themselves, their team, their school, their discipline, or higher education institution, and doesn't know how to begin the process of introducing a new and different approach to research practice, which currently appears to be esoteric and uncertain, using mysterious language. This is very much for practitioners who need a primer to get moving. But you might ask yourself, why do we need yet another book on research impact? Well, the obvious thing is it's because we talk about research impact a lot, but we just don't practice it. Now, what are the reasons for this? Let's look at, I'm going to list several of the academic research obstacles or problems that make it difficult. Well, currently there is a research gap between research producers, potential practitioners, and research consumers. There is a explicit translation assumption that someone somewhere just might contextualize your research to realize value, but you don't actually get involved in identifying who that person might be and what is the context where value could be realized. There's also growing cynicism about the utility and value of traditional bibliometric approaches to valuing research. So if you think about the Emerald Change Ready Report 2019, coming to, if you like, coming to more recent times, the Jack article in the Financial Times about the lack of evidence that research, certainly in management research, ideas actually being applied in business. But we think it's very much very useful to go back to the Emerald Change Ready report in 2019, which was the one that, if you like, gave us a kick up the backside and said, you guys have got to do something. There are growing pressures to connect academia with impact in terms of sustainability and relevance in a world of constrained resources. So just as COVID demonstrated that epidemiology is not a science, we also have to consider the impact of the UN's Sustainable Development Goals, which, whether we agree with the hypotheses that underpin them, are going to be very influential in terms of introducing the importance of ethical thinking about work that we do in whatever form it takes, but especially when these ethical thinking forms could be applied to research. We're faced with a conservative academic culture with a lowercase c that's resisting translational, outcome-focused research. I've actually heard people say, I'm hoping that if this doesn't just die a death, I'm hoping that it will go away and I'll be able to retire without actually having to learn anything about it or to change. There's a lot of evidence of gaming of the current research exercise. reinforcing the powerful. In other words, the exercise has demonstrated that those who are good at playing the game of the ref continue to be good at playing the game, whilst those who are trying to join the game are finding it extremely difficult to participate. So one of the thoughts we had around research impact and introducing these fundamental ideas around value would be that this could be a means of those other universities and higher education institutions that are outliers currently could catch up with those who are leading at the moment. We noticed that funders are interested in promoting impactful research, but there's very little evidence of serious practice, like St. Augustine of Hippo on the subject of chastity, who said, "Oh Lord, make me chaste, but not yet." There is very much a kind of glacial permeation of academic research into useful practice. The research is being done, but very little of it is actually being translated. So where did the content of the playbook actually come from? It's the book itself is a collection of tools that are developed through structured discussion workshops involving academic research practitioners and users of research in the business world. So we went for a vertical slice of participants, of producers and consumers, as well as mediators. And as I said earlier, it very much began in the 2019 period when Emerald Publishing had published their Change Ready report, which was becoming quite influential, and we were quite surprised at how clear it was about the nature of the trend. But we worked with Emerald Publishing. They hosted our first research impact reverse engineering exercise. So we worked with those folks with that vertical slice of consumers and producers, and we began to develop our fundamental thinking through those structured conversations. What does the playbook do? Well, I'm going to talk about what it doesn't do. This book is not an exhaustive comparative study of research impact literature. What it does do is it delivers a selection of key concepts, ideas, and tools that can enable researchers and leaders to begin to develop research impact as a practice, and in that process of developing practice, to take the first steps in becoming research impact practitioners. The playbook reflects ideas developed on our journey to explore and unpack the potential of research impact as a practice. This book is not about replacing the traditional closed research model with an open research model. We think they are complementary, but we do tend to focus on this open research model. What it does do is it suggests that the rounded researcher and research leader could benefit positively even by retrospective application of playbook techniques and tools to legacy research projects to actually discover the potential impact and value of research, which, if research impact value thinking is applied to, could still be realized. We also designed this very much around trying to help research impact practitioners design measurable value into new projects at the concept and visualization stage. So it has two, if you like, ways of working. We're probably familiar with this model, the idea that same old thinking, the same old results. In reality, the dynamic reality of the world market of ideas means that actually the same old thinking is giving us worse results, not the same. Actually, the results that are coming out are even more predictable and even less translatable into value. We need new thinking. So the book's very much around how do we enable new thinking for research impact to be realized. So there's if you like, an example of Maslow's hammer. And the quote goes that when all you've got is a hammer, then every problem tends to look like a nail, and it tends to get treated as though it is a nail. So there we are, we've got a lot of academic researchers with hammers in their hands, and they're looking for nails to hit. Our problem is that there is a reciprocal connection between a restricted repertoire and cognitive bias. So we go round and round between academic researchers who are trained in the closed research model can only think in terms of realizing, it can only recognize problems that can be solved by using closed research methods. And part of our mission is, how do we actually break that restricted repertoire? And we believe that one of the ways of breaking that restricted repertoire and diffusing that cognitive bias that exists at the moment is by introducing different ways of thinking based around innovation and value. So what have we learned so far? Well, we've learned that just thinking about impact changes the way you think about the purpose of research and the nature of value, and what constitutes value under what circumstances. Our most important piece of advice is we encourage people to visualize their research as a product or service that's going to make a difference to someone's life, their work, or their world. Just visualizing it as a product or a service that makes a difference, hopefully a measurable difference. And this is very much around helping people to move their thinking outside of the closed research box to think about outcomes and beneficial outcomes and users. It very much involves beginning to visualize end states, focusing on end users by adopting collaborative innovation approaches. 5 W's and 1 H, that's who, what, why, when, where, and how. What have we learned so far? Well, we've learned quite a lot. First, most important thing that relates to this idea, this reciprocal relationship between repertoire and cognitive bias and the nature of the restriction that it imposes upon thinking, is that there is a practical knowledge vacuum that needs to be filled. Academic researchers don't know what they don't know, and we discovered this a little bit later. There's a problem, a fundamental problem, or one of them, is that there's no acknowledged core impact model to objectively evaluate and compare research impact case studies. So one of our first pieces of work with that research impact reverse engineering exercise that we led with Emerald was we constructed and tested a simple high impact research design principles criteria model. This went through 5 iterations, a lot of application to legacy impact case study submissions. And the more we went through submissions around research impact, the better the model became and the more useful it became. As a result of constructing this very useful template that we call the high impact research design principles criteria model, it then occurred to us that we could reverse engineer the design principles criteria model into behaviors. And we designed a high impact research diagnostic tool. In other words, we called it the impact research profile, that would help practitioners identify the methodological gaps that they didn't know that they had. And it would allow us to actually give feedback to research impact practitioners as to where they were strong and where they needed to pay more attention, and where there were complete explicit gaps. And one of the things we did is when we developed the impact research profile was, in order not to give away the nature of the overall model, we shared components within that model with researchers in the scientific and social sciences fields. And quite interestingly, we got a lot of interesting feedback. And invariably what practitioners said was, we love these elements that you're asking us whether we recognize or not, and we'd like to know more. Could you tell us more? So we began to realize that research managers and scientists and conventional researchers in social sciences got very excited when they began to realize the shape of the hidden research impact curriculum or high impact research curriculum through completing the impact research profile. They began to realize, if you like, the nature of the gaps. And it was at that point we decided we need to actually mobilize our learning through constructing the research impact strategy portfolio. So how is the playbook structured? Well, essentially, we've got 6 chapters. We've got the orientation chapter. We've got, in that chapter, we tell the story, we talk about tactical developments, we talk about the 4 current research impact tools that we've developed. Chapter 2, we talk about the old research game versus the new emergent research impact game. We talk about the drivers that are helping facilitate this change. We talk about the REF 2021. We talk about adaptation, and we introduce something we call impact agility as a way of thinking about making the change. Chapter 3 was very much around understanding and objectifying research value. As we said earlier, the importance of visualizing your research as a service or a product. And what we did there was we introduce and apply entrepreneurial and industrial commercial value tools with which most academics are not familiar. So we supply a whole collection of potential tools that have valid potential in the academic research impact context. Chapter 4 builds on chapter 3 by helping to help thinking around designing value into the research process. So we begin with some anecdotes, including Dragon's Den. We move towards the dilemmas that a research manager has who's trying to sell research into the marketplace. And then we talk about the research impact value proposition model that we introduce and how we can use it in a workshop to help influence traditional academics to understand the potential of taking their ideas and turning them and realizing the potential emergent value that they didn't know even existed. Chapter 5 is where we take a step back and we begin to think less tactically, more strategically. We begin to ask some questions about structure and strategy. And if you like, we pose the obvious question, which is, if we're serious about research impact, what would an optimal structure look like in order to deliver research impact consistently in a university? And we also open up the issue of encouraging people to become their own research impact architecture by identifying and mapping the location and relationships of people within their own organization who have research impact in their title, but often don't know that other colleagues exist, and certainly their thinking and their working isn't actually connected or synchronized through some form of workflow or communication. So we do suggest there's a lot of interesting work that can be done around understanding your research ecosystem. That's internally as well as, if you like, externally. Chapter 6, we go into reflecting on the journey so far on chapters 1 to 5, and we also introduced something called the Research Impact Declaration, which was an attempt to synthesize what the key issues actually are, some of which have appeared in this presentation. And we also began to look forward to the next book, the Research Impact Strategy Playbook 2.0. You'll notice there are 2 appendices. There's the high impact research design principles that were mentioned earlier, and there's also the research impact value proposition model. And if you like, the third component that is available but is online is the impact research profile model that we talked about earlier. Is available if you go to the Impact of Impact, all one word.com website, scroll down and you can find the profile, you can complete it, you can get an initial report back on where you are, where your development needs are, and where you are currently quite strong. We got a number of endorsements from some super folks. We shared prototype versions of the book with people that we could trust to give us objective feedback, who would tell us the truth, and people were very kind. Petros here from my own university, University of Greenwich, he grasped, if you like, the essence. This is about individuals understanding their own impact and getting value out of it. It's about research leaders setting their group tactics. The playbook can help steer novice and experienced researchers through an ever-changing, dynamic higher education landscape. Research active academics at all levels will be hooked by this book. From another context, we're really pleased to have an endorsement from Tamika Hayden in Australia, founder and principal of the Research Impact Academy. And it was really quite exciting to get her perspective on the book as a serious, respected practitioner. She says some great stuff, like it's succinct, thought-provoking overview to research impact, out-of-the-box thinking and adaptation of principles from innovation provide a new and exciting way to approach and think about the broader value being provided by research to benefit those outside of academia. Just two more. Professor Rajkumar Roy, a former colleague at Cranfield, said some really nice things. He said, this book offers easy-to-use tactics and strategies for impact design and development. This is a must book for applied researchers and even for some PhD students. And finally, of the 4 out of 10 that we acquired, Professor Darren Griffin, a colleague of Paul's at the University of Kent, was kind to say it's an upbeat, easy-to-read book, demystifies the dark art of impact with which so many academics struggle. I recommend thumbing through it, as you may discover that finding impact for your research is easier than you think. And there was a little surprise, not a sting in the tail, but an unexpected present, which was the book was also shared with entrepreneurs and people in senior positions in commercial organizations that actually take research and turn it into products and services. And invariably, if like the most common comment that they made in that amongst that elite audience was that there are a lot of things that they can apply within their businesses that will make a difference around understanding research impact. So that was great. We didn't expect it. So we do suggest go out, buy the book, apply the ideas, go onto Amazon, order either the physical book to the right there or the ebook version on the left there. Whatever your choice is. One of the things I've done is that I've reduced the price temporarily between the 28th of March and the 4th of April to £4.99 for the ebook and £10.99 for the physical. So do suggest, whilst it's available at this lower price, go and get it. It will be going up, I suspect, probably around second week of April. So buy the book, apply the ideas, learn some lessons, and share those stories of practice and dilemmas, perhaps, that you've experienced in trying to implement some of the playbook tactics that we've introduced. Share those experiences with us on impactofimpact.com. And if you get a chance, join the Research Impact Strategy Group, which is hosted at the University of Kent. So buy the book, apply the ideas, learn some lessons, share them with us. We look forward to hearing your stories. So we got there. Thank you for listening to my introduction of the Research Impact Strategy Playbook. This is the presentation of the launch. It's the product of Professors Paul Phillips and Victor Newman. And thank you for listening. We hope you go out, buy the book, and apply some of its ideas and share what you learn, and let's perhaps capture some of those things that you've developed and apply them in the future in the next version of the book, the Research Impact Strategy Playbook 2.0. We look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.